So now we have come to complex tissues. So under complex tissue, we will talk about xylem and phloem, right? So complex permanent tissues. So there are different types of cells get together and form complex permanent tissues. The main types of the two main types of complex permanent tissues are, as I mentioned, the phloem and the xylem. The xylem is it's the vascular system of the plant. That means as our blood circulation system, the vascular system of a plant is the xylem. So you can find this xylem in roots, stems, and leaves. Actually, all over the plant, the whole plant contains this vascular system because each part of the plant needs water. So the main task of this xylem is to transport water and a lot of minerals in that water, the fluid throughout the plant. So that contains actually xylem is in the middle of the trunk. When you take the trunk like this, so you take a cross section. The xylem is in the middle. Phylum is to the peripheral side of the trunk. Okay, so xylem, when it comes to xylem contains several types, as I mentioned, several types of tissues. So one, the vessels contains, so the vessels, you have these vessels, right? Right. So the vessels stack on top of one another, and the cross walls between two of these vessels are dissolved. I mean, have been dissolved in order to form a continuous xylem vessel, right? So when if the cross walls are present, what happens? You cannot transport water, right? You cannot transport water because it's a barrier. So all these cross walls have been dissolved to form a continuous xylem vessel. And the other tissues are xylem parenchyma and xylem fiber, tracheids, uh, vessels, tracheids, xylem parenchyma, and xylem fiber. So xylem fiber, uh, actually this is a tubular structure that helps in transportation of, as I told you earlier, water in plants. Tracheids are elongated spindle-shaped cells. Okay, spindle-shaped cells. Tracheids, like this, elongated spindle, right? So xylem fibers, you know what a fiber is. So there are fibers present in this um, xylem tissue, and these fibers are narrower and shorter than trachea. Tracheids are elongated, spindle shaped. Okay, but fibers are different to that because they are narrower than the tracheids and shorter than the tracheids. Uh, in the xylem tissue, the xylem vessels, tracheids, and fibers are dead, right? So they become dead because uh, you know the cell wall of the plant tissue, plant cell is made out of it's made out of cellulose. And can you remember I told you that you can see the deposition of lignin in those uh, in complex tissues. So the lignification of cell walls is present in tracheids, xylem fibers, and what? Xylem vessels. So, because due to these lignifications, the cells are dead, right? So, they provide only the support to the xylem tissue. Xylem parenchyma are the living cells. They have very thin cell walls. The cells in this xylem parenchyma have very thin cell walls, and then they involve in food storage. So again, I'll tell you, xylem vessels, xylem fibers, and tracheids are dead. They are dead due to lignification of cell walls. There's a compound, or it's a like a yes, it's a compound like cellulose compound called lignin. So these lignin have been, lignin has been deposited uh, in the phylem fibers and not phylum, xylem fibers and tracheids, xylem vessels. So because of that, these three types of tissues are dead. But when it comes to xylem parenchyma, they are living cells and they have very thin cell walls. And the main task of this xylem parenchyma is to store food. So then we'll move on to the function of the xylem. So functions of the xylem: transportation of water, minerals to the plant body, which are absorbed by the roots. So um, roots absorb these minerals and water, and they are being transported they are being transported throughout the plant body via this xylem uh, xylem tissue. So now again it provides mechanical support. As I mentioned you earlier, the xylem fibers, vessels and tracheids are dead, and their main task is to provide mechanical support to the plant body. Now we'll come to phloem tissue. Phloem tissue. So you can see the picture or the figure 1.12 and 1.13. A longitudinal section of the phloem tissue, and as well as a cross section of the phloem tissues. So when you look at the longitudinal section of the phloem tissue, you can see the sieve plate. There's a it's like a sieve. You know what a sieve is, right? There are small holes in that plate, right? And you can find phloem parenchyma, companion cells. In Sinhala we call them sahachara companions, like it's like the friend of the this, what do you call this, xylem phloem um, uh, sieve tube elements. Okay, so you will find sieve tube elements, companion cells, phloem fibers, phloem parenchyma in phloem tissue. So in xylem you found the vessels, xylem vessels, tracheids, xylem fibers, and xylem parenchyma. Here you will find sieve tube elements, companion cells, phloem fibers, phloem parenchyma. So when you look at the sieve tube elements, as I told you earlier, there are small holes in that the sieve, not in the sieve tube elements. It's in the sieve plate. Okay, the sieve plate is this sieve plate, right? We have holes in it. So sieve tube elements fuse end to end, and the cross walls are completely dissolved. So it is obvious that the walls should be complete, incompletely dissolved to form a sieve tube, right? It's not completely dissolved, because if it is completely dissolved, all the things will be transported throughout that tube, but it is not. So that's why we say it's a sieve tube. It's like a sieve loop, only small holes. So the cross walls, so they fuse end to end, and the cross walls are not completely dissolved. Um, so actually, the sieve plate is called the cross wall is called the sieve plate. The mainly these sieve tubes transport food. Mainly the form of food transported to other plant is we call it sucrose. Sucrose is the main form of transporting food throughout the body, right? So companion cells are elongated cells associated with the sieve tube elements. So as I told you, they are like the friend of the elongated cells associated with the sieve elements. The nucleus of the companion cell controls the activities of the sieve tube elements, right? So sieve tubes do not have nuclei, and the nucleus of the companion cell controls the activities of the sieve tube elements. Sieve tube elements, companion cells, and phloem parenchyma are living cells. Phloem fibers are dead and found scattered in phloem. It's like scattered. Um, uh, the phloem fibers. When it comes to fibers, fibers are always dead cells. Okay, so again I will tell you the sieve tube elements fuse end to end, and the cross walls are not completely dissolved. The main task of this sieve tube elements is